Welcome back to Weekend Walkabout in our gardens and yours virtually.
Continuing into air issues and troubleshooting in our basic indoor gardening. I'm Janet McConovich at GardenAtoZ.org.
I'm Stephen Nicola.
You already met us if you were here for the first part, and our daughter Sonia Nicola, who's moderating the chat, and Shane Pliska, who's the president at Planterra and in charge of, do I say hundreds of thousands of plants, Shane?
You could, yes, yeah.
Hundreds of thousands of indoor plants.
At that wall alone.
And we're working our way through a note-taking guide that you can get from our website at GardenAtoZ.org, or look in your chat if you're with us right now. It's in the chat. So good air circulation. We spoke about this a little bit in questions earlier today. Generally here in the range of temperatures that plants like, Shane can speak better for this, I think, than I can. But we do know that once you get below 50, you get those cold drafts, you can start stunting roots and killing plants. And air circulation there at Planterra's greenhouse had an excellent example of this. Steve, the technician was explaining to you what she's been doing.
Yeah, what they originally had was a lot of plants underneath the ficus here and not so much there. And they found that it was causing too much moisture to stay. The humidity was changing and places for pests to hide.
Yeah, so they're working with keeping the mealybug down by they took the plants out from there and are growing them at the feet a little ways out. Air circulation makes a big difference. And cold drafts. Steve brought this plant home to me the other day because I asked him to go take pictures of plants, and now we have plants. But these leaves that are darker are telling you there's trouble, and almost certainly touched something quite cold in order to cause that problem. But air is also circulating moisture. And in our houses, especially in the wintertime, you get into that whole idea of low humidity, and where your bathroom and your kitchen, because water is running there 2 or 3 times a day, it makes a big difference. Having pebbles, a tray with some water underneath something makes a difference, or hosing things off once in a while would keep the brown edges from happening on ferns. It's what the technician here at Planterra is doing with is it a tree fern?
Yes, Australian tree fern.
Yeah, that's pretty.
It requires lots of humidity.
Yeah, grouping plants together makes a difference. But this now we can't all have a koi pond in our house like they do at Planterra at the greenhouse. But having a tray of water, and you can put pebbles in it so that it looks decorative. Having a tray of water underneath a plant, not like the self-watering pots that Shane showed you. It's separated from the pot so that roots can't grow down into it, but the humidity is there all the time. Makes a big difference for almost all plants, certainly for bromeliads. And although it's a good idea to group plants together so that they keep humidity around themselves, they become a little forest environment. It's not a good idea to group different plants in one pot, regardless of how cool that looks. Give each one its own pot, because they might look the same because they're succulent, the jade and the crassulas that are in this pot here, and the sedums, but they've got different requirements, and you need to make sure that they get meet their different requirements. Bloom, sometimes you need a temperature change for bloom. When I first talked to the people at Planterra, it was about the question of how come my jade doesn't bloom. I see people with jades that bloom. They need to be fooled into thinking that they've been through their native winter. So it has to get dry and cold for a while, and then boom. I'm pretty sure the jades in the greenhouse bloom pretty well, Shane?
Some years better than others, but when they do, it's like a snowball. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, they're just flat.
But we also have the jades positioned near our front door, so it gets a little drafty there in the winter. So that actually can contribute to it too.
Yeah. So Christmas cactus and clivias need a time where it gets dormant, where it gets dry and cool. Not cold like Michigan winter, but cool. And sometimes they're not going to bloom well until that happens. So when your Christmas cactus, for instance, blooms at Thanksgiving or at Easter instead of it might be the variety or the species of plant that you have, but it also could be dependent on when that plant actually got enough cold hours to feel like it had been through winter.
In combination with light too, I think.
So air does matter. Isn't that beautiful? Don't you just love it? It's like you want to go and get another plant every time you see something like a variegated jade. So anyway, watch for the, now let's talk about pests. And the big thing being, you got to watch for them, right? You have to have eyes on these things. IPM. So I think this is a bougainvillea, a variegated bougainvillea, but it doesn't really matter too much what it is. Steve just brought me pictures. Look at that and tell me if there's anything there that makes you look and say, oh, we might want to take a look at this plant and see if we can do anything different. See the I'm seeing damage. I'm seeing that these leaves have had some trouble while they were forming. Probably, maybe they had a mite infestation that was drying out the leaves. Maybe they got too cold in one place. But it's those little things like that that we tell people before we talk about how to deal with a huge infestation of scale or mealybug or fungus gnats, that you need to watch for little changes along the way. So like Shane says, you can quarantine the plant quick and get just a few things here or there. So if the leaf color changes, especially if the leaf surface is sticky or dusty or looks scorched, the growth stops. If the growth stops. These are things that we need to watch for. Losing older leaves is normal for plants. They don't keep leaves forever, even the evergreens, and losing the lower, oldest leaves as a plant grows is something that you kind of expect to happen. You don't want to lose those. Right, and they shouldn't be deformed. So check into what its native life cycle is, like the gloxinia that we were talking about earlier, or cyclamens. They do go dormant. They scare people. They go, oh my gosh, it went away. My shamrock just shriveled up and went away. You need to know that it's okay if they go dormant. I found out through one of you who wrote to me about a jade plant that he figured was dead, and he threw it in the corner of the basement. That I cut this branch off of a jade and left it in that bag all winter. Took it out and it said, "I'm still here and I'm fine." And it's growing. Push new growth. I took that one and mixed up some sand and some potting mix. I like sand for the weight to help hold up a jade, and cut it into pieces and put it in a pot and started a new jade for somebody. I can't remember who we gave that one to. Yeah. So check into the life cycle and know what it is that you're supposed to be watching for. Then your big tip, what Shane has told you. What he said, keep the leaves clean. Keep them clean. Hang on, there we go. This is one of your technicians, Shane, and you can explain. I think I've got, there we go. I think you can explain what you see going on here.
Yeah, so we use a mixture of water and what we call leaf shine. And it makes the leaves look nice and pretty, but really what we're doing is we're cleaning off any kind of pest that could be on there before it goes on a client's site. So the top of the leaves get the leaf shine on them. We do not put this on the bottom side of the leaf, except in the situation if there's a pest. We'll use a horticultural oil to kind of smother the pest out.
Yeah, and this has been for all the time that I've known anyone at Planterra, so at least for 3 decades now. Brand X is what you use for the foliage.
No, it sounds so ominous, but it's just
I had to look it up. I said, okay, let me see what the ingredients are. And it took some poking around to find the MSDS sheet and looking. It's just some surfactants, which are things to help it stay on the leaf and to break things up. And lemon oil is the main item in it. So I use Murphy's oil soap was my big thing because I had it in the house all of the time. So both sides of the leaf. And if you learn the major pests, we list the ones that we call major. Tell us what we missed, Shane. Mealybug, whitefly, scale, mites, fungus, gnats, and mildew are the big things that we run into. Should we add anything to the list for?
That really covers what you're going to find.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we can look and we say the mealybugs they're actually called a soft scale. I've seen plants look white with mealybugs clustered on things like the flower, the new growth on a plant. But what they're doing is they're sucking on the twigs and the leaves and causing that new growth to be stunted They're also helping make the leaf surface look dirty. And one of the reasons the leaf surface looks dirty is because those mealybugs are shedding their coatings on there, their excrement on there.
Yeah, they're excreting.
Yeah.
And the other aphids, I don't know if that was on your list too, but the aphids go for the new growth as well.
Yeah. And so you're looking for things like dirt on the leaves and a little bit of alcohol on a swab. And this is Trudy on her kumquat tree saying, oh, I see what's going on here when we told her what's up. And she's dipping each one she can see. Now you can also do what we saw at Planterra, which is you can just scrape them out of there, just wipe them right out of there. Yeah. But she's killing them with a bit of alcohol on a swab because it dries out their surface. But you go ahead and Steve, you can talk.
This is on that ficus that they were having the trouble at Planterra. She's picking off the spot where they hide. That's the mealybug, whitefly, and they hide in these little old.
That used to be the wrapping around the bud. You've seen it, and it stays on philodendrons, on pothos, on the ficus. That tip cover will stay on, and she said they hide in there.
And so, yeah, that's a little bit of maintenance, but if you take all those off, it can help make a difference. Especially, she said, on the lower ends where. She doesn't have to go way up into the top of the tree because they haven't noticed the mealybugs as much as they're down low.
Yeah, this is the kind of work that is tedious, except that it's also relaxing.
Well, she was a very uplifting, excited person. She really enjoyed working with her plants and showing me these little things.
Yeah, most people that we talk to want to know that there's some magic bullet that they can just feed the plant this or spray this and it'll work. And it's really looking and doing small things all the time that make the difference. And noticing. So the arrows are pointing to a scale on the left. It is an insect that affixes itself and sucks on the leaf, in this case of the bay. And on the right, it's pointing to the little dots of sticky stuff called honeydew that are excrement from the scale on the leaf above. So you see stickiness, or you start seeing things sticking to your leaves, start looking for where the problem is and get it before it gets to be huge. I don't have Brand X. I have Murphy's Oil Soap, and I'm washing down this plant in my old house where I just had my beautiful tile floors.
Oh,
where I
yeah,
could do
tile
these things right inside out.
Stupid carpeting.
And I'm spraying it down, just like Shane said, put it in the shower, which is another thing that we do. Yep. Stick them in the shower,
especially when we bring them in.
Yeah, I always covered the potting mix because I didn't want soap getting in it. Lemon oil would probably work better, especially if you can do each leaf. But you do each leaf.
Yeah, we would do each leaf.
Every single leaf.
Yeah.
The more you do it, the less you do it. Really is what it works out.
Yes. Yeah. It's as much preventative maintenance as everything.
And there are some higher tech things you can do at Planterra. They're using nematodes that they put into the soil. We've talked about nematodes in the garden, things like black vine weevil and strawberry root weevil. These nematodes they're keeping cold and then applying them. And now, would this be for fungus gnats or for your mealybug larvae in the soil?
So those are nematodes mostly for not the mealybug, but scale more often.
Scale, okay.
Yeah.
And we're not looking at nematodes, you guys. We're looking at a medium that nematodes you cannot see. You need a microscope to see.
Yeah, if anybody tells you they saw nematodes on their plant,
except in the case of Sonia's husband, who saw a nematode relative called the roundworm. And you can actually see it. There are also some things like the sticky tags. Maybe you can describe this a little better, Shane, than I can, because this is for insects that need to move from one place to another.
It's essentially fly paper.
Yep.
And so we call that a monitor card. So it gives us an understanding of what's going on. So the two bugs that will end up on there is either fungus gnats or white fly. Fungus gnats are a particular menace. They lay eggs in the first couple inches of soil. First we need to monitor to see what the issue is, and then we come up with solutions. Yeah. And by the way, we do use biologicals for fungus gnats as well. Yeah.
good into the soil. Rinsing things off all the time, especially if you put your plants outside in the summertime, to start rinsing them off, especially toward the end of the season. Keep them clean before you bring them in if you're concerned about bringing something inside. Now, what we did for troubleshooting for you in the reference links is there's a link to an article on fungus gnat control, which has a lot to do with not watering so much too, because the fungus gnats don't do well in drier soil. And to things like controlling scale, there's links to articles there, but we can take questions shortly. Let's just get through the fertilizer first. We don't fertilize a lot. Shane, you'll have to tell us about your fertilizing routine because your plants are so healthy.
So it goes back to photosynthesis. So when there's less light, there is less photosynthesis occurring. So that means that we need less nutrients. You want to be quite conservative when it comes to fertilizing your plants. So we do not recommend fertilizing at all within the first year of you purchasing them from the nursery, because the soil already has plenty of fertilizer in it from the nursery. In fact, sometimes if you see the granular stuff sitting on top of the soil when you buy the plant, you might want to shake that off a bit because there's often too much. Then in terms of fertilizer, the recommendation is only do it in the spring, okay, for indoor plants. Don't do it in December. And then depending on your comfort level, I mean, always read the labels of fertilizer, okay? But, the granular kind, like the Osmocote, just, quite often is quite adequate. The other piece of fertilizer, the other way to fertilize is to just simply add some new potting mix to an inch of it to the top of your soil once a year. And that actually provides more nutrients too. So there's a number of ways to do it.
That's great. Now we're at the end of our time and looking at new growth starting with all kinds of things that you can look at. There are things you can look at for those reference links to see more information, but there are some questions stacked up, and if you can bear with us for another 5 minutes, we'll let Shane answer those because he's going to be he needs to get going. You need to get out into the
And actually, your question producer as well I have to give a lecture on literature to 10th grade students today. So I will also have to make a relatively quick exit.
Well, any questions that we don't get to that are in the chat, I will make a chat transcript this week because it sounds like this is a topic that we can go for again. Okay.
Yeah, I have 4 single-spaced pages right now of notes. So, there's stuff. Okay, so because there were a lot of questions about pests. Jocelyn is asking, if you're bringing plants in from outside that have been out all summer, what sorts of bugs do I need to be worried about? Like, what particular bugs are we looking for to diagnose from plants coming in? Is there any top tips there?
It's the same ones that are on them on the inside too, isn't it?
Okay, all right.
Yeah. I mean, maybe you'll bring some predators in too.
Yeah,
you might bring in that ladybug.
Yeah. So Michelle's asking if a little bit of Dawn in a water bath or shower, will it kill bugs in the soil when you're bringing plants indoors?
I'm going to say probably not. Soap kills by drying out an insect's exoskeleton, and it kills them by crumbling their exoskeleton. And there's not going to be enough soap and enough contact and plenty of places for insects to move away from it. No, that's not going to work.
Yeah. Okay. And so we talked a little bit about this in the chat, but Stacy was asking about removing the first few layers of soil and replacing, but you shouldn't do that just as a preventative, right? Shane, you were saying that you have to determine like what kinds of bugs we're thinking about, that it's sort of diagnosing and then deciding how to act, or what would be your recommendation there?
The first 2 inches of soil is really related to fungus gnats specifically, because that's the layer in which they lay their eggs. So, it all depends on what kinds of pests that you're dealing with. If you're moving your plant from outside to inside, always recommend hosing it down really, really well outside before you bring it inside.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Great. Any concerns about how to dispose of the bugs, the cloths, the stuff that you use for cleaning the plants? Donna's asking.
I don't think there's a big problem with disposal. Maybe in Shane's case where they're using so much stuff. But these aren't insects that are going to look up and say, "Oh my gosh," and run 20 feet back to the plant you took them off of. They don't work that way. They were born there on the plant. So what do you think, Jane?
I mean, just a trash can is just fine, really. Yeah, they're not going to run away.
Yep. No, the soil gnats. Nancy says she's dealing with them. They came in on a bag of Espoma potting soil. She's sprayed the plant and the soil with neem. She's watered the plant with mosquito bit tea, and she's caught many on yellow sticky strips, but feels like maybe she's only just starting to make headway. Are there other suggestions? She says her main victims are Ming Aurelias.
Put an inch of sand on top of the soil surface.
Or switch to and just use a builder's sand, a coarse sand. They don't do well in sand.
Yeah, great. And then a lot of people just, how do you get mealybugs? How do you get rid of mealybugs? Any of like sort of just a summary like kabam on mealybugs?
Okay, there is an article on mealybugs, and it's a page single space, but they've been around for hundreds of years. Every greenhouse has them. They're ubiquitous insects, and they're a problem when they can multiply. But they're, where they come from, they don't come out of the air. They come from the mealybugs that are everywhere in every plant production process. And
look, they're outside too. And the biggest difference is outside there's predators that eat them.
Right.
Yeah. Excellent. Any advice on getting rid of scale on a rabbit foot fern? Amy says she's used rubbing alcohol on a Q-tip, sprayed with diluted alcohol, but still have scale. Try a horticultural oil instead.
On a fern, that's tough, especially a rabbit foot fern.
Real tough.
Yeah, fern with the oil, not good.
Man. I'd certainly during the growing season be having that thing outside and trying to turn it upside down, and with a soft mist be cleaning it all the time during an active growing season. But boy, I don't know. Anything you put onto that fern is going to damage the surface of the fern probably more than the scale are doing. Can't help it.
Yeah. Sometimes
keep doing what you're doing if
right?
you're slowing it down anyway.
Yeah. You recognize what you can do, and you have a conversation with yourself when you realize you can't do it. And then finally, for pests, Linda's asking about a systemic powder. She says she uses one for her 15-year-old ficus. It seems to work.
Well, we don't use any.
We don't use systemic
any chemicals. Well, we use chemicals, but not that type.
They could. What a systemic insecticide does is it is drawn up through the roots and becomes part of the plant itself, so that when the insect chews on or sucks on that leaf, it ingests some of the chemical and dies. It doesn't prevent insects. It kills the ones that might try to get started. But we don't use them, so we can't really talk about how to do that stuff. Okay, excellent. All right, and we are at 10:07, and I think everyone should we could do this for another hour. I have absolutely no doubt. But thank you for everyone's questions. Thank you to Shane. And
my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Great content.
Thank you, Shane.
So you all have a great Thanksgiving. There's the only ZZ plant that I have is the first leaf just coming out. No, that's not ZZ, sorry.
No.
Anyway, I would really love to think that we're all going to be together again talking about indoor plants, but we're not. It'll be 2 weeks.
Yep, it'll be 2 weeks.
And we're going to be talking about plants in the news. And we invite all of you to come back and join us there, and have a great Thanksgiving. Be safe. See you later. Thank you, Shane, so much. Oh, and before everyone leaves, I'm putting all of the social media contacts for Planterra in the chat. So quickly, if you want to save your chat or screenshot your chat, that's how you get a hold of Planterra and follow them. Planterra.com, Facebook, Twitter, Insta. And we'll add a chat transcript as an attachment to the video links that we send you for the recorded version. So that's it for Basic Indoor Gardening. Thanks for being with us at gardenatz.org. We're not here next week. We're taking next week off. But plants in the news in 2 weeks. See you then. Take care, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Bye now. Bye, Shane. Thank you so much.